Today we're going to go through, and I've got any field of opal you can think of. Just, I reckon we dig through a few of them, pick out a couple stones to carve, and we'll carve them away. And I am actually recording this video, so I'll be able to upload a edited version for later, which is always great. Any updates on your homemade polishing compound? I've got the two metal oxides. I've got an experimental one as well, but I'm never going to sell the experimental one just because it would be too popular, but also too much trouble to make. The other two do a good enough job already. It's just, yeah, the blended one is amazingly good. I'll probably use it myself, but I probably won't go through the trouble of selling it. It's a lot of weighing and a lot of mixing. It's a huge pain, and the manufacturer would charge me an absolute fortune for them to blend it, so I don't think that's going to happen. Someone did mention Wello. I've got little jars. Mike will recognize them. They've got a little bit of Ethiopian opal in them, a bit of Mexican opal in them. It's a bit of an assorted bag, so I can always tip those out and carve something from that. Mike in the chat earlier was talking about this one here, but I'll save him for a video. That's a big water opal, one that I'd definitely be too scared to dry, but it looks quite cool. Red and green. Don't see a lot of blue in Ethiopian opal, I've found. A lot of red though. And it's like Christmas colours. If you're interested in gem shows, if you watch Lapidary Dave's channel, he's always hitting up gemstones, and of course the big one was on very recently, which Dom went to. But yeah, one day I might go over to the US for that. But for now, it's a bit out of reach. Oh, actually, I said before I was going to show you guys how hot it gets in the shed. I've got one of these little arm resting things, like a wrist resting thing for using the mouse at the computer. And if you look here, the gel inside melted the other day. It's been, like for the US viewers, up there towards over the 120 mark in this shed. We have days where it gets over 50 degrees, and apparently this gel stuff, it's re-solidified a bit now, but it was like water. It was melting everywhere. So I've had to clean all that up. There's still a little bit left in it, but it is not long for this world, so I'll get rid of it. I didn't really use it much anyway. But that's how hot this shed gets. And if I check my Ethiopian opal that I've been leaving on the bench here, let's have a quick look at him, because he has gone through a hot week. So this is one that I carved on the channel very recently, and look at that, it's still championing, an absolute champion of color and free of cracks. Very good, very surprised and pleasantly surprised at that. So very good color for the price. Definitely check out Ethiopian opal if you haven't already. I know people aren't a fan of it. I know all the drawbacks of it, but it is just fun to play with every now and then. Yeah, carving dry I still don't do. I don't do any of my dry carving for Ethiopian, apart from when I'm just removing some of the crust at the start. If I really need to just grind it away with a sintered diamond, I do that, but that's just to get most of it off, and then it goes straight in the water. Brazilian doesn't seem to react to UV light. That's probably true. I haven't actually tested the UV light against all the international stones that I've got, but even some Aussie opal doesn't react to the UV light. It doesn't fluoresce. So it's it's interesting. Doesn't help if you're noodling with the black light though, so the black lighters would hate it. Yeah, Don has done a dry carving of Ethiopian opal, but yeah, he had an extraction system, whereas I got nothing. Cringe when I see Novas running dry. Oh, Cole, I have seen, unfortunately, another YouTube channel blow up some Nova points where they just come flying off the end. He wasn't using them dry, but they were drying, and the amount of force when people use Novas really hard, that's when I feel a bit of cringe, because they're not bound onto that shank all that well. I haven't had one come off yet, but I'm also very gentle about it, and I know that it's just a resin binding the binding the diamond, but also just to the shank. And shanks are not that receptive to binding in the best of. So yeah, anyone watching this video later on, we've just selected a stone and we are going to carve it up, and then we'll select some other stones and carve them up as well, hopefully, because this won't take too long to get through the sintered diamond stage, as you'll see. So microphone down, and let's get to work. So yeah, like I said, we're just going to go for a 600 grit sintered diamond. I've got the adjustable chuck on the end of this Dremel. So it is actually a Dremel. I'm not just saying Dremel to replace rotary tool. It's the Stylo, or 2050. It goes by a couple other names as well, depending on which country you're in. And I've got it set to 1, which is the lowest speed. And I think the lowest speed is about 5,000 RPM. I don't think it's quite up to the 80 or the 8,000, which my other Azudo typically runs at for minimum speed. But we'll just mount this in the tool. It's a fairly easy quick change system on this one, so just the button, just got to be careful not to press that button and this on button at the same time, because that will probably not do great things for the little motor. But yeah, just holding that in. You don't need to crank it, you don't need to use a tool and get in here and just crank it over. Just finger tight is good. If this starts slipping and moving or something, you can always just tweak it and tighten it again. It's really not that bad. And if I turn it on, I use this because on the live streams it's quite quiet, unlike my Ozito. And let's not use the big tall container because it's too hard to get into. Instead, we'll go with this one right here. So yeah, just a little bit of water, keeping everything wet, keeping the tip wet. This one I'm a little bit careful of because the electricity does run into this. It's converted though, so it's actually not that bad. It's not like I'm doing the 240 volts Aussie AC. 10 amps, 240 volts will hurt you, possibly even kill you. And here I'm not, because these were sent over to me already wet, I'm not worried about picking off any of the crust. It's already been wet. If it's cracked, it's cracked. It's not a huge problem. And all we're doing is getting rid of things like this in that top corner. So you can see there, this has to go. It might even be better to slice, but I'll give it a carve and see how we go because it's fairly rough. It looks like it's already been picked, which is very, very helpful for me. And we're also just going to get rid of all of these. You can see here, that is a sharp point. That will murder a Nova point like you wouldn't believe. It will score it. It will literally just cut a groove out of it. And if you've got a groove that's not going to hit the face of the opal next time you're working. And you're going to get an uneven finish, which is no good. But the sintered diamonds, so this one in particular, I've probably used possibly the most. It's gone through, it would be hundreds. It would be hundreds of stones of various sizes, various hardnesses. And you know what? It has very little deformation so far. So this thing will last you an absolute lifetime. Unless you're doing a really hard stone. For us opal carvers, we can get away with running one of these burrs for a really long time. And you can see here, it's fairly fast acting on the Ethiopian opal. You'll see every now and then that I do this. That's just me cleaning the face of the burr. Until your fingers get really soft and wrinkly, this does little to no damage. If you're carving for a couple hours though, you've got to be a little bit careful about it. And I realise I have not looked at the comments. So Jackie, is that opal harder or softer than Aussie opal? I would say most Aussie opal, this is softer. it's got a higher water content, so it would make sense to be softer. I am thinking of just going through and measuring every field of opal I have for multiple things, not just for hardness. Take them into the lab, and when I've got some spare time, or when I'm bored or something, or when I'm just testing a machine, I've analysed things like polishing powders and stuff. Maybe I can take some opal dust in there and just get that done as well. Just to have a look at a few other things. Because if I did a good enough job, I could actually write a research paper on it and get it published. Having doctor in front of your name is helpful for that sort of things, especially if you can collect enough good data and chuck it up there. Speaking of which, where's Dr. Phil? He was here somewhere. You never seem to have much splatter when you carve. You'll get splatter if you get your burr in the exact... See there, you'll get a lot of water flicking. There you won't. There you won't. There you kind of will. And I try not to use my burrs at a really high speed. That keeps a lot of the splatter down. But in a video, before it's edited, I do occasionally have to wipe the screen. So you don't get to see it, but it does create a fair bit of mess. You'll see it in the boulder videos because you can't hide it. Every now and then the boulder is going to absolutely cover everything. But as long as you keep everything wet, you don't get dust. And as long as you don't kind of play in the wrong depth, you don't get much splatter as well. It's the same with the trim saw. You get the water level right inside the trim saw and you're much better off. You don't get covered in water. You don't need an apron. But yeah, here I am getting a little bit wet, but mostly just on my hands. And yeah, it's just about getting rid of all of this stuff in here. Ethiopian's definitely a different strategy to Aussie opal. But in the end, we're all doing the same thing, opal or not. It's all about that grinding to get rid of the things you don't want, and then grinding with finer and finer bits until you get rid of all of the scratches from the previous stage, and eventually your scratches get so small that a surface gets really shiny because the light bounces straight off it. Oh, there you go everybody. Opal Mills has got a interesting video coming up by the sounds of things. I'm barely on Facebook from the Opal Mills. That's a blessing. That site, if it wasn't for the Opal community page, I probably wouldn't have it at all. Let's try to keep towards the center of the camera. So I'll bring this over. Yeah, you can see here we've got one little problem area. And you'll notice that when I'm working opal, I won't often work kind of with the face and go like this unless I'm just trying to nip off some edges, and even then I will probably almost always go like this. It's much safer and creates far less chipping. Chipping is a nightmare. It doesn't happen with the Nova points that much unless it's a really brittle stone. But with the sintered diamond, be especially careful with chipping because it takes a lot of work to get a chip out. And it's something we have to deal with carving much more than anyone has to with any other kind of cutting machine, the flat lap or wheels. Little chipping is mega annoying. If you think you're going too fast, just wind it all the way back and just see if you're getting through the opal at a reasonable rate. because too slow isn't really a problem, apart from the fact that it'll take you much longer to get something done. But too fast can definitely be a problem. It's so much harder to get a good finish, and also to prevent excessive damage to the stone. Like, this does feel a bit slow for me, but that's just because I want to keep the volume as low as possible so I can still get my voice over the top of it. But I think this is operating at about 5,000, which doesn't look too bad. It does feel slow though. Because with the Azeto, I would have gotten through this by now. This stone would be at a rub stage. Unless this clump of dirt will never disappear. And even like this, you'll see that I'm never drilling. So this isn't a drilling operation. We're not doing a drilling operation here. We are just doing a carving operation. We are being gentle, we're being smooth, we're being even. We want to round everything. We want to spread everything out because we have to get the nova points into the deepest part. And you really don't want to do a drilling style operation. It may sound like we're at the dentist, but we're not. We're not drilling cavities out of teeth here. Though this one's starting to look a bit like a tooth. Sometimes I do feel like I'm just in the dentist chair operating away. I might have missed my calling. Doctor of dentistry might have been the better option. Hey, Cockatoo Birdman Bill. Another regular and channel member, and he has a $5 donation. Don't try to test hardness of an opal in a Rockwell tester, it will be no good. I wasn't planning on using a Rockwell tester. I was going to go actually even more basic than that and just use the old scratches. The old hardness scratches. Ethiopian shouldn't crack once it's dry if you finish the opal to a polish kind of stage is correct. That's the strategy that I run with nowadays. But like I said in the last Ethiopian video, I accidentally had that opal dry at this stage. So after this 600 grit sintered diamond, it completely dried out because we had some really hot days. And you know what? It survived. I reckon I would have just gotten really lucky, but some Ethiopian opal really doesn't care. It will survive, just like an Aussie. It's just that it transforms every time it gets wet, and then transforms as it dries, and it's quite a wild stone. I don't know. I used to really not like it much, but I think it was when it was a lot more unknown, and I was having bad experiences with my first Ethiopian opals. So it just goes to show, in life, you might need to give things a little bit more time. And you can't judge an entire category of anything just on a handful of experiences, or just what you hear others say. So even if I say something on the channel, there's still a very good chance that I haven't experienced what you have. And maybe something is really interesting to work with, and I just hate it because I had one bad experience or a couple bad experiences. So, if you learn anything from a wise 30-year-old, I'm probably one of the youngest still here. It would just be that point. We can't be too quick to judge. I just stopped judging opal entirely. Every year I look back and I realise I've come across something completely new that I didn't expect. Opal is great for shattering expectations. Now this one I am drilling a little bit. I am finding that I'm going down a little bit because there's a point. It's a little wormhole of sand going in there. That's pretty much got it though. But with Ethiopian Opal, I tend to try to get rid of it entirely with the 600. Same with Aussie Opal really, actually. And I'm just now, with the carving, while trying to get rid of this, I'm also thinking about the shape at this point. This is when you start thinking about shape, because it's not easy to shape with a 280 grit Nova. You do want to do all the coarse shaping with the sintered diamond. So I'm already thinking about how I want this freeform to look now that I've seen where the inclusions are and that I can get rid of them. I'd suggest never going into a piece of rough with a shape in mind. If you're going to do like freeform, you've always got to get rid of the inclusions, then start thinking about shape. I mean, no matter what, you have to get rid of the edges, which is what I'm doing now. And always visualize that you're going to be using Nova points. And if you've got small Nova points, then it's you're going to be able to have a lot more luck. But if you've only got large Nova points or something, you do have to be really cautious. A large Nova point's not even going to get into this channel now, because look at the thickness of this, and then look at the thickness of a large Nova point like this. So always be mindful of that. That's the biggest hurdle I always had when I started out. I would carve these little, intricate little things and then realize, how the hell am I going to polish this? And that's where you get the toothpicks, which I still do, because big thing of toothpicks. Toothpicks, diamond paste, it'll save your life, but it's better to just avoid that. Especially if you want to use the Novas. Oh, Jackie, she's done one of those special comments that members can do. Member for 6 months. 6 months. We got some people. Cockatoo Birdman Bill, I think, has crossed over well over a year. There's been a couple. Can't believe it. That means it's been a year since I introduced memberships to the channel, which is wild. And I think the channel's like 3 years old or something now. It would be, because I started it during COVID. The dreaded illness that swept the nation. Well, swept the nations. I don't think there was any country that it didn't get a hold of at some point. This is quite a cool colour. The toughest thing with Ethiopian is that I have never seen this stone dry, and I don't know what's going to happen to that body tone when it does dry. It could be one of those whiter, cloudier ones. It could be one of those crystal clear ones. I rarely ever see them stay orange, because right now it looks very fire opal like. Very fire opal like. Doesn't help that it's red. But yeah, having not seen this one dry, it will be interesting, and I'll have to put up a follow-up video of anything we do on the live stream, because I'll go off and polish them up and dry them if they're Ethiopian. Will your NN Opal torch reveal how deep the inclusions are? I mean, you're still guesstimating, it's not measuring anything, but yeah, you can easily just angle the torch in different directions and just measure how the shadows are cast by the inclusions. It only really works well when you're looking at crystal opal. For things like white opal, it's much harder to judge because the shadows get cut much shorter than they would if they were in a crystal. But you'll get used to being able to read that. That torch is an absolute godsend. And spoiler alert, I just went to the P.O. box yesterday or the day before, and I've got a random parcel in there from the one and only Riley Gunn of 53 Frogs NN Opals. And he's sent something out of the blue, and that's always a good day when he sends something out of the blue. So I'll have an unboxing video. It might even be the next video, I'm not sure. Depends on how I feel. But it might even be the next video. I'll probably record it today because I really want to open it. It's so hard, guys, to get something in the P.O. box unexpectedly and then just sit it there and say, nah, I can't open it until I turn the camera on. it is rough, but I don't want to do any kind of fake unboxings. I know some other channels have done that in the past, some of the channels that I've watched, and it's yeah, a fake unboxing, you might as well just not do it. If you're not getting those initial thoughts. And I try not to turn it into an advert, but it is, I mean, he's just a really cool guy. I'm sure most of you have dealt with Riley. He's probably one of the most prolific opal sellers I know. The amount of work he puts into selling opal is quite incredible. I've never seen someone selling anything sell as much as he does. His opal auctions page I've never seen have less than a couple hundred items on it on sale. It's crazy. So that's looking good. So we've still got a spot over there. I can show you really clearly with that green backing it up. And then, yeah, over this side, spot over there. That's from that fairly deep section. So we've done pretty well. This stone should turn out quite well. I'm thinking I might even get rid of this end, but nah, we'll keep it. We'll keep it, we'll round it. And I want to try to keep, on most of the stones that I'm carving, I want to keep something that looks almost like a setting edge. So if I'm going to put it into like a cup bezel style thing, I want one flat side and I want an edge that I can hug the metal around. Though I know Phil in the chat would be thinking that's going to be a nightmare to set. Just cab it. Which, you know what, you can't always go back and do. So it's not a problem. Oh, nah, Paul is, I mean, on Opal auctions, I think Paul and the fam have not only stores that are selling hundreds at a time, they've got dozens of stores selling hundreds at a time. So it's is more of a one-man army, one-man band, and he does incredibly well. Old Riley. I wish he spent more time on his YouTube channel. I wish he spent a little bit more time on his YouTube channel, because I know he's got information in that crazy brain of his that would help people. And I know this because he sends me messages with plenty of useful information that could easily turn into a video. I don't know what his views are towards YouTube and that side of things. I mean, you can only focus so much on so many things. But I'm also going to ask him if he wants to come on the channel, because I've got a great video idea which I need him for. He would be the best person for it. But I don't want to spoil that. Demoting him to number 2. It's hard to do that to Paul. I mean, he's done so much for Opal in general. He's an absolute champion. I bought stuff from him. Unfortunately, I haven't had much to do personally with him. Like, we haven't really talked about it much or anything like that. I don't know what he thinks about YouTube either, because he could also run a killer channel. He could run a channel just showing off some of the opals that he's got, and that would last for years. One little spot in there that's causing us some grief. We'll just keep rounding out everything. And that's almost got him. So if I turn this off and we have a bit of a look, need to find the focal point of the camera and stay close to the mic. Yeah, it's really hard to see how much red it is just because of the body tone. And the green's not coming through on camera all that well, apart from every now and then. Oh, actually, the lens is pointing in a completely different direction from my eyes, so I've just got to maybe find a better angle. But yeah, very fire opal-like body tone. I'm not overly happy with the shape. I think if I have a better look at it, yeah, there might be something I can do with that. But yeah, at least we've rubbed it back and we can see what we've got ourselves. You can still see a couple little spots there. It's definitely still some inclusions. And it's honestly not coming across on camera that well at all. It's got a surprising amount of grain to it now. I know it's just flashing that red, but I'm seeing quite a lot of green, which only comes across in glimpses on camera. Don't know what that's all about. Green normally comes across really well. It might just be the live stream compressing it a bit, which is disappointing because it's quite a Christmassy looking stone. It's emphasizing the red and getting distracted by the orange body tone. Oh, that's one little fun one. That Ethiopian now will go through to polishing, which will involve the 280, 600, fingers getting wrinkly, 1200, I don't know, I could skip that, 3000, and we're just going to work our way up to 50,000. I don't know how Mike does it. I don't think he skips any grits, but to the 50,000, I do tend to skip the 8,000. I just go 14 then 50. 14,000, 50,000, and we're good to go. Oh, switch screens. Classic banter. Classic banter. Let's do all of that again. Maybe I can do something tricky on the upload and just override everything that just happened, replace the audio with this visual, and I don't even need to say it all again. But yeah, 50,000 polish. If I get that flash angled correctly again, this is why I need to look at the chat. You guys are smarter than I. So you can get a really nice polish. That's on a semi-flat side. And then if we can just get the light bouncing off some of these peaks, maybe I can add a second light actually. A more directional light helps you look at the shine. So it gets glossy after the 50,000. But yeah, because I'll edit out that previous section, I will say, I used to just use diamond paste, but I know people use cerium oxide, aluminium oxide. It's I think it'll get a little bit better. So I've tried the 50,000 on Boulder Opal and Coober Pedy, Lightning Ridge, Mintaby. All of those I then went back over with the metal oxide, and it definitely did get better. But it is an extra hassle, and just using a 50,000 Nova is pretty good. I wish they had 100,000. If they had a 100,000 Nova, I reckon you'd be getting some nice mirror shines, because this isn't quite mirror shine. It does have a little bit of a, it's just missing that little extra kick. But yeah, it is very easy to use, so much easier to use than diamond paste. Diamond paste, if you guys have tackled that stuff, I don't know, I've never been a huge fan of it. I just saw it as something that was necessary. But honestly, I've almost completely phased it out of my life unless I need to get a toothpick into a really small gap. So this one looks pretty good. So that's it dry, which makes me think I can just go straight to the Novas. If I need to recut it later, I'll recut it later, because we're not going to get rid of that sand. That sand is too small. This is a nice, a little bit of kitty cat claws. The old chaff pattern. Very chaffy actually. It's quite a nice stone. So if this was a black opal, it would go absolutely gangbusters. But it's a fairly transparent crystal opal, Coober Pedy. Still a great stone. So I just want to talk about the Novas. This would be, just checking the edges, this would be okay for the Novas. I'm going to clip that edge off just quickly with the sintered diamond. Clip that edge off as well. This one just here. That one is not feeling great. This one here, not too bad. This one here, not good. It's too sharp. You can see it right there. That point, even the 280 grit Nova will cry with that point. That will carve a line beautifully around the burr in a second. Less than a second. Just want to knock that off. But apart from that, it's pretty good. So I'll just quickly do that. Doesn't take much. The 280 grit is a pretty robust little Nova point. It can do a lot. It can do a lot of shaping. It can get the polishing going. It can get rid of the last of inclusions that you don't want to get rid of with the sintered diamond. What it can't do is handle sharp edges. Sharp edges are a no-go. The resin is still the resin. I think they use the same resin for all their points. And it will get cut real quick. But that's all you need to do. As long as you get it to a stage like this, minus the inclusion in the face, that one I would work a little bit more with the sintered diamond, you are good to go for Nova points. So let me just get the 280 on. So here we go. 280 grit Nova. You can see all those little diamonds. Now, when you chuck the Novas into these, this is one point that I forgot to mention in my video when I was talking about these versus the collarettes. You need to make sure that the burr is centered. So just turn it on, and you should see that. And when you turn it off, you should see it just stop. You don't want to see it like lurch to the side when it's starting or when it's stopping, because then you'll start getting this little oscillating wobble. If that does happen, all you need to do is loosen it, like just a tiny bit, and then just reposition. Maybe a quarter turn, full turn. Just turn it a few times if you want, and then just retighten, line it up, hit the go, and make sure it does that. Make sure it doesn't deviate from center. You can also feel up the top here. I mean, it's not good to do dry, but you can feel at the top here, if it's really moving across, you'll feel it like scrape across your finger. Whereas right now I can just feel it drilling in. Not that advisable, but I'm a professional. It's okay. Just don't copy me. Just don't copy. Hey, Bundy. Wonder how Sheila's doing over at Pulitzer Opal. Yeah, he's got the best sidekick of anyone in the Opal game, that's for sure. That is for sure. So Nova Point, you've got to make sure that you do it a lot wetter than what the sintered diamond is. You can get away with just wetting the stone instead of the point if you don't, like some people mount their Dremels or whatever to a bench and have it stuck here and just pretend to use it like a cabbing wheel. I tend not to. I tried it early on and did not like it. But yeah, you can just get away with wetting the stone as long as you see that the color of the Nova doesn't change. Let's see if I can... So, wet, you get this nice, like, glossy kind of black look. And if I can just dry it off with my thumb, it starts going really matte. You don't want to be carving as soon as it gets to that kind of point. You want it to remain that glossy, nice and protected style. Well, look. And yeah, it's really not that bad. Just remember, miss all of the sharp edges if you've left any for whatever reason. Just never leave a sharp edge. Sharp edges are not good. You can work out the last of the inclusion, so the one on the side there is too big, but if you look at, I think there's one towards the top here. Yeah, there's a little bit of one towards the top here somewhere, but I don't think I can zoom in enough to show it off quite clearly. But this Nova Point will get rid of it quite quickly. So you do definitely need to consider this as a fairly rough tool still. It will chew away opal real quickly. This one I might actually... This one is a good candidate for actually just getting cabbed up. So from here, I wouldn't use the 280 grit to turn it into an oval or anything. That is definitely a job for the sintered diamond, but just to show off a few points with the novas that I don't get to do when I'm doing it as a video recording. Just how quickly these things can chew up an opal. Even this inclusion. So this is a large inclusion. Am I zoomed all the way in? I am. I'll just bring it closer. That is quite a large inclusion. If I just go with the back end of it and just hold it there for a second, it's getting rid of the material so quickly, almost as quickly as a 600 grit sintered diamond. So you can instantly deform an edge. So you've got to be very careful if you're doing your final shaping with a nova point, not to consider it like it's a soft resin point, it won't do anything. It will do a lot, and it will do a lot really quickly. So you've got to be just as careful with this as you are with the hard burrs. Once you get to the 1200, don't stress. Don't need to worry about it so much. The 600 will do a bit, but not as bad as the 280. This 280 surprises everyone because it is very much an aggro nova point. So definitely take it easy with the 280. That's the most important thing I can say for the nova points. The other thing I'll say is take your time. You always have to take your time. You're never going to get rid of a 600 grit nova, a 600 grit sintered diamond scratch with anything but a 280. Like even the 600, you'll take hours to get rid of a scratch from the sintered diamond. People think 600 sintered diamond to 280 nova makes no sense because the number is getting lower, but trust me, it makes a world of difference. It makes a huge difference. As soon as you start carving, you'll feel it. But if I were to then, I'll go over the face of this quickly, and then I just want to dry it and show off the stage. I'm really abusing this opal. Feeling a little bit bad about it, but it's a good demo. So there you go. You can already see that 280 has already reduced the sintered diamond to this nice even fog. Always even fog, guys. And if you're really uncertain about when to move on, use the 280 in this direction, switch over to the 600, use it in this direction. Now it feels a little bit weird. It's much easier if you dop it. But if you alternate the directions, you'll see exactly if you've missed something or you've changed over too quickly. This looks pretty good, even though it was very, very quick grind over. I think it was already pre-rubbed to higher than 280. So I've actually taken it backwards. But you just want that nice even fog in each stage. The only time that disappears is a little bit in the 1200, and then it's pretty much gone in the 3000. It starts getting slippery to hold on to, and it starts getting much, much clearer. But you just want to make sure the fog is even. You don't want a deep fog over here and then a light fog over here. You know you've missed something. And definitely check any kind of valleys or pits or anything like that that you've got. Otherwise, you just don't want to go backwards. Going backwards kills the most time when you start. I reckon I would have spent 3 times as long on some of my early stones that weren't even good, weren't even big, but it was just because I moved from the 280 too quickly to the 600 and then thought, you know what, 600, that's fine, 1200. You dry it and you look at it after the 3000 and you go, wow, I've got to go back to the 280. And you just double your time automatically just doing that. It's a horrible feeling, and I know it's the major point of frustration for all opal carvers. I reckon it happens to cabbers as well. I've had a lot of cabbers talk to me about that. So it is very, it's very demoralizing. Like I really feel for people that email me saying I can't get this nova thing right, because it does take a little bit, but once you get it, you're flying. It's so easy. And yeah, I did see before Mike did mention that this nova looks pretty worn. It is very worn. So the 280 will wear faster than all the others as well, because it does so much work. These were the same size at one point. Even this one is old. This one's pretty worn. but nowhere near as worn as this one. Here you can still see the formation line, the mold line. But here there's, yeah, that was long gone. It looks like it's a small Nova, it's not. They're both larges. So the 280 does wear really quickly. It does do a lot though. It does do a lot of work, and you still get a lot of stones out of it. If you're finding that you're getting rid of it too quickly, then you've got another problem there as well. You just got to be a bit nicer to them. I'm looking at the biggest piece of Ethiopian I own, and it smells different. They do actually smell a little bit odd sometimes. Someone did say in a previous video that I should wear gloves while carving them because of the mud. I haven't had any skin allergies or anything to it, but I have noticed that it does smell. And if you guys have ever worked a lightning ridge, maybe I'll go to headshot. If you guys have ever worked a lightning ridge opal or something that, what's a good example? Oh, I had that stone, that monkeypox stone from the blacklighters that got sent over. That one stinks. That one had some sort of sulfur compound in the mud. And when I was carving that one, it was stinking. It was stinking something special. Like, it is really rough. But yeah, sometimes the Ethiopian does smell a bit strange as well. I've also got a parcel of opal. I won't mention who from, because I'm not a smoker and I'm not a huge fan of smoking, but I opened up the bag and I was like, yeah, this guy's a smoker, because it just hits you in the face like a truck. And then it took about a week and then it was all gone, so I was quite happy with that. I thought they were going to smell like that forever. It was so intense. So do I ever smell my opals? Of course. Don't we all? It's a very normal thing to do. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, Don. Smell all your opals. It won't hurt them. Don't sniff too hard, though. And definitely not if it's a powder. I was wondering if you had any tips as far as what sort of Dremel points to get on a tight budget after the sintered diamond. Like, instead of the sintered diamond? Like, the sintered diamond, maybe you're just saying that the sintered diamond is the best one, have to get it. So after the sintered diamond, I would just get the 4-pack of Novas. You need this one. You need that 280. Whoop. Can't do it like that. You're not on camera, Nova. You need this 280. The transition from sintered diamond to a polish, this is the most vital piece. You need that 280. I have not been able to replace it. I've tried with so many other things. None of them have come to the same level of speed and finish. You can get away, actually, I'm now just lying. You can get away with going for sandpaper. You can use sandpaper to replace the Nova point. It's just much more complicated, far less easy. I've got videos on the channel for it. It's really the only alternative that I've found that works quite well. So if you get sandpaper discs, you can replace the Nova. But I would say, for the amount of cost and trouble, depending on where you are in the world, if you're in the US, never go the sandpaper method. Like, you have no excuse to not get the Nova points. They are really cheap. Just go to Silver Lapidary, have a look. You'll be amazed at the price. I talk about them being expensive because I'm over here in Australia, and it's really rough. I'll grab the mic because we're doing a bit of a catch up. But yeah, definitely on a tight budget, I could understand you skimping out and just getting sandpaper. You can get through a fair few stones with the sandpaper. You can also upgrade the sandpaper to a mesh style sandpaper. They last a bit longer. So do that as well, and you'll be all right. You'll be all right. You can always go diamond pastes on your own fashioned wooden points. I did videos on that back when I used to use diamond paste. Even then I was phasing out diamond paste because I discovered the wonderful world of polishing. But yeah, diamond paste is also a good idea. Oh, Phoenix is already helping out in that stuff. Yeah, he's right. The diamond paste is pretty good. Have you ever tried black opal? I mean, we could do a black opal right now if I can find some. I don't tend to work a lot of black opal just because of black opal direct. I'm sure I've said this on the channel many a time, but because black opal direct does the black opal thing really well, and it's the same with Riley doing Endomuka stuff really well, you'll notice that the channel doesn't have a lot of either of those. So I tend to go for more the variety, and I don't know, I'm more of a hobbyist, so I just have fun and try different things. But I do work a bit of black opal. A lot of the time it doesn't work out. Some of the time it does. There's definitely videos on the channel for black opal. Whenever I get sent stones, a lot of the time it is either boulder opal or black opal. Typically black opal. People like to send over black opal to work on. I guess because of the price range of it, it's quite scary for them to cut if they've accidentally found something good. So they quickly send it my way. I like these little ripples and stuff that form from the vibrations and the movement of the water. When you let your opal water settle, you get some really cool patterns sometimes. I don't know, you got to enjoy the small things. When you have a stone that works out, doesn't work out, and you're looking for any positive you can get, seeing patterns like this is actually pretty cool in the water. I've taken a lot of photos of that. This tin's getting a bit rusty. I don't think I'm going to buy a metal tin next time. I want a black plastic tray to do my carving in. Oh yeah, and Phil has Endomuka covered, of course. Over at the Opal Mills, who was here just earlier. Well, I need to put resin on Endomuka concrete fairy matrix. That's a mix of a lot of different things merged into one. Sometimes if you get the really hard Endomuka matrix, you can get a polish with aluminium oxide on it and you'll be pleasantly surprised by it. If anything is overly porous or unstable, that's when you need to do a resin treatment. And typically people use like one of the liquid glasses. There's a lot of brands out there, but the liquid glass, you can just get a nice thin layer across the top of it and it'll shine up looking like it's not porous at all. It's the treatment, of course, and yeah, of course that lowers the value, and you can also go over it and polish it up more and grind it back if you've put it on too thick, all that kind of stuff. There's also a really sneaky way to treat opal that isn't really widely used yet. I haven't come up with it. I know it's known about, and I don't really want to share it because it's much harder to pick up unless you've got something like I've got in the lab. Like with some proper science equipment, you can pick up the treatment, but it does also, there's some sneaky things out there that can work and that we don't have great ways of picking up at the moment. So yeah, things like that I'm not going to share too much unless I can convince myself that there's a way to. Yeah, I don't think there's a way that I can convince myself to share things like that. It's the same with the synthetic opal. I did a poll way back and I asked if people wanted to see me make any synthetic opals because PhD chemistry, like I know how to do it. I've got some ideas on how to do it better than what some other people are doing and how to get it stable and looking really like it's a real opal. But if that is successful, because I have started, if that is successful, then I won't share the exact method. I'll just show it and then just destroy it because I don't really want that to happen in the opal world. I don't think anything will ever compete with a natural opal, but I am worried that it is possible to get really close, much closer than the ones you see now. Like even the synthetics versus the like imitation opal. The imitation opal, pure rubbish. The synthetic opal though, some of it does look pretty good. It's just a little too synthetic looking, but you can actually make that look more natural with a couple techniques that I've thought of. And so once that's successful, I'll be sharing that it was successful, but I won't be sharing the methods or anything. There's a few things there that I just don't want to put out into the world. I want to do good for the opal community. I don't want to bring it down. All of a sudden everyone will go out and find ways to hunt down these chemicals and put it together. And I think it'll be very detrimental. Because I know, like, everybody in this chat's cool, it's not a problem, but we all know there are some absolute rubbish humans out there, and they will, anything dodgy, they're straight in. They're straight into it. So yeah, there's a few projects that I'll still share, but I won't share in the same level of detail as I'll share like how to carve opal and stuff. How to make really good looking fake opal is not something I'm interested in putting out there too much. I'm going to start doing YouTube shorts as well, so that'll be something like really short, 30 to 60, I think 60 seconds is the maximum, just 60-second clips of like, I don't know, dopping, polishing, carving, cabbing, all that kind of stuff. It's something I've been playing around with, and the editing is a little bit different, but I think it'll work out well. And apparently lots of kids just sit there and scroll through YouTube shorts. I don't watch YouTube shorts. I hate short videos. I like to listen to things for a long time. Do you do private masterclasses? So I have been thinking, I haven't announced it on the channel, but I am thinking of putting it up on the website where we can do like, because I've done a lot of online tutoring, I can, with a setup like this where I've got what else do I have? I got the screen and face, I've got the camera and face, I've got all of this stuff. It's actually better than my old online tutoring setup. So I think there is a chance that I could do some stuff. I might ask the channel members if they want to be guinea pigs, and we can do some sessions. But yeah, like the online tutoring, I guess I do have to put some sort of time to it, otherwise it'll get just booked out instantly. But I am thinking of doing it. I just don't like to charge much. I just want to help people and make sure they're getting what they want done. So there might be something up. It won't be very much, maybe like $20 an hour or something. I think that's pretty much what my old tutoring rate was. So it's definitely an option. I'll look into it, and I just need to work out what kind of, I can do it as a private stream or something. Maybe that's the easiest way, but I want to be able to hear the other person and see what they're doing as well. So maybe Zoom, I don't know. Shorts really boost your channel right now. I have not even looked into it really. I just know that I got an email from YouTube saying that I'm able to do it now or something. So I might just chuck some in there, and it's just for people with really, really short attention spans. How to carve opal in 10 seconds, and then just it'll be some condensed editing. It's surprisingly difficult to edit a 60-second video with any kind of worth to it though, so I don't know, we'll see. But anyway, Nancy's heading off as well. Catch you later, Nancy. I will be coming back to Dimmy at some point. It's been more than a decade since I've been home, so I got to see the grandparents, and I'll catch up with you at the same time. And yeah, if anyone's around Adelaide, I work in the city, we can easily catch up. And one day I'll start traveling the nation and hitting up gem shows and stuff, but that could be a decade from now. So yeah, alright, I'll catch you guys later. It's been really good to see the regulars, good to see some new names pop up. Yeah, all very good, and I'll see you next time, either in a video or in a live. So catch you guys around.